What if your entire identity was erased in a trial by fire, and you survived, not just survived, but came back stronger, carrying the power to shatter an empire? This is the story of Ashen, the human who dared to defy an ancient caste, faced the flames of betrayal, and ignited a revolution that would change the fate of the galaxy forever. Welcome to the Garden Between Stars. Part 2. She just stared at the vault's label, Project Morningstar, do not activate. She turned away, only if they make us. The earth stirs. In the shadows of a dead world, something ancient began to hum again, and high above, far from Earth's orbit, a lone Volari probe registered heat signatures rising from beneath Geneva. It flagged the anomaly, tagged it human threat level, reassessment required. And quietly, it fled. The sky caught fire at dawn. Leo's mother said it was a comet, a meteor storm, anything but what it really was, but Leo knew, he felt it in his bones, in the way the air bent sideways and the insects went silent, in the way his dreams the night before had ended with a voice, not his own, screaming inside his head, the fire is coming. Orbit, Volari Scorch Legion, 12 ships, black, organic shapes. Hive-grown, armed with particle flensors and planetary kiln beams, their arrival was not loud, it was elegant, almost beautiful, until the air above Argent 6 ignited. The colony burns. Leo ran, holding his sister's hand, weaving between collapsing buildings as red fire fell like rain. The sky roared. The fields cracked open. People turned to ash mid-step, but Leo didn't burn. He should have. He saw the light hit him. He felt the heat, but something bent. Time hiccuped, a ripple passed through him, and around him. It sees me, he whispered. Inside the storm, in orbit, a Volari commander watched the child on her holodisplay. It was impossible. The scorch beams did not miss, but this one, Subject Alpha Anomaly, she rasped. He is not immune. He is refused. Later, hidden beneath a collapsed greenhouse, Leo wept beside his sister's body, but the voice returned, you are not broken, child of soul. You are seen. You are heard. And when the fire returns, you will burn them back. Leo looked up, eyes shining, a scream still trapped in his chest, but now, a new sound building behind it, resolve. The vault groaned as it opened, cold mist rolled out from its depths, washing over Kira's boots like fog spilling from a grave. She stood motionless at the threshold, staring into the blackness. This thing was never meant to be activated, said Dr. Holland, flinching as another servo hissed. It was theorized. Prototyped. But no one actually. It was built, Kira said flatly. And buried. Because they were afraid we'd use it. She stepped inside, and the door sealed behind her. The Morningstar device, it wasn't a weapon. Not in the traditional sense, it didn't fire rounds. It didn't beam radiation. It didn't orbit a sun waiting to scorch worlds. It was cognitive, a neural viral array. Half machine, half consciousness. Designed to embed itself in AI systems and overwrite hostile minds, the last remnants of Project Edenfall. What's the uplink protocol? Kira asked. Holland hesitated. It doesn't connect. What? It doesn't connect to machines. It connects to people. The choice, the lights in the vault shifted, swirling into red. Then pure white, a voice echoed through the walls, human designation, Commander Voss. You have invoked Protocol Morningstar. One soul for one star. She gritted her teeth. I understand. You do not. But you will. Inside her mind, it unfolded, thousands of thoughts, not hers, weapon schematics. Battle doctrine. Tactical subroutines. Alien linguistics. The blueprint of war itself, Kira screamed. Fell to her knees. Her hands bled, but she didn't stop, because this wasn't just survival, this was vengeance. Send the signal, she whispered, let the Volari know Earth remembers. Orbit, Volari Recon Node 3, across the sky, every Volari node in system went dark for 6 seconds, then flickered back online, confused. Slower. Sluggish, something had gotten in, a pattern, a name, Kira Voss, Morningstar, and they couldn't erase it. The station wasn't dead anymore. Riven stood at the central spire, boots humming on a lattice of light, the air pulsing with energy that hadn't existed 2 days ago. Mira was beside him, her hand on her weapon. She hadn't lowered it since they docked. You're sure it called you? She whispered. He nodded, slowly, not in words. It needed me. Or something in me. The chamber walls bloomed open, petals of steel unfolding to reveal a singularity core spinning in the air. Its gravity compressed into a fist-sized pulse of fire and memory. That's a star, Mira breathed. They've caged a piece of a sun. No, Riven said quietly. They grew it. The voice of the sanctum, the air thickened. Then it spoke, not aloud, inside their skulls, time is devouring itself. The cycle breaks where soul ignites. Mira staggered. Riven didn't flinch, he was used to hearing voices by now. Images flashed into Riven's mind, galaxies, spirals collapsing in flame. Planets weeping light. Volari fleets swarming a world, then stopping, not because they were defeated, but because something else arrived. The last time humanity was seeded, we ended our creators. You are not a new anomaly. You are a reoccurrence. The fire does not evolve. It returns. Mira looked at him, pale, riven. What are they saying? That we've done this before. The key, the core pulsed again. A shard of it broke loose, crystallized energy shaped like a spire. It floated toward Riven, pausing just above his palm. The Overmind will fear this shape. It remembers our kind. But we are not your allies. We are your warnings. Mira stepped forward. What do we do with it? Riven closed his hand around the shard. We give it to Earth. To Kira. And somewhere in deep space, the Morningstar virus felt it, like a beacon. Now 2 human minds were lit with fire. Volari submind response log, error, access denied, infection pathway, self-replicating, core directive interrupted, source anomaly, human. Hail, Riven, action, initiate biological extinction protocol. The fire was gone, but the air still buzzed like a hive with no queen. Leo walked barefoot across scorched glass plains, his clothes singed, face covered in soot. His feet didn't bleed. They should have. He no longer felt pain, not like before. Inside his mind, the voice had changed. It no longer shouted. It listened. Why do you not fear? It asked. Leo didn't answer. He simply stared at the horizon, where the Volari scout craft hovered silently over the remains of his colony. The machine saw him, but it did not fire. It couldn't. Why do you not burn? Leo tilted his head. Because I already did. Volari submine 034b, Argent, 6, error, cognitive loop detected, anomaly class, human, child, psychic resonance, emotion injection feedback, empathy. Shame. Grief, warning, core overlap, directive, isolate target, response, null. Leo walked straight toward the hovering scout, its weapons lit, then dimmed. He raised one hand. I forgive you, he whispered, and something broke, not in the ship, in the Volari pilot. It dropped to its knees inside the cockpit. Screaming, then silent, the vessel shut down completely. Somewhere deep inside Volari command, a tremor ran through the Overmind, a ripple of confusion. Discomfort. It remembered this pattern. It remembered. Error. A long time ago, a genetic line that should not have survived, a child born under fire. Hearing too much. Feeling too deep, Leo sat in the shade of the dead scout craft, watching the sky change colors. And far away, Kira Voss saw a new name appear in the Morningstar interface, secondary conduit identified, Leo Seraph, age 9, cognitive class override detected, potential, class 0 rewrite. She stared, and whispered the only thing that came to her mind, what are you, kid? There is no I in the Overmind, there is only we, billions of minds braided together, organic, synthetic, and quantum-threaded, drifting through eternal purpose. It does not forget, it does not regret. It consumes, until now, anomaly detected, threadlink 00032, emotional recursion event, threadlink 00044, directive pause, empathy response, threadlink 00001, error, name detected, Leo, a name. Names are shameful things in the Overmind, they imply separation, choice, the ancient disease, identity, erase the anomaly. But no thread moves, no order executes, flashback, Earthseed protocols. The Overmind remembers something buried deep, a war so old it exists only in corrupted memory blood, a species of heat and grief, of wild chaos. They were not destroyed, they simply vanished, like sparks in water, but one fragment remained, and now it speaks again. Leo, Kira, even Riven, not just enemies, infections, their thoughts spread like light in deep water. Not loud. Not fast, but felt, Valari pilots have begun to sleep, Valari command ships hesitate before targeting escape pods, a single squad defected during the most recent planetary purge, one used the human word, mercy, the core argument. For the first time in 1,000 cycles, the overmind argues with itself. Purge the human strain. Observe the evolution. Shatter them. Listen. The cognitive current fractures, not fully, but enough. Designation, first fracture. From within the deepest neural archive, a new process awakens. It does not identify as Valari, it does not identify as human, it calls itself something else, echo form, and it listens to a child who did not burn. The shard burned against her palm, she'd carried it for days. Locked it in a vault. Fed it power. Studied it with trembling hands, nothing, until now, until midnight, when she awoke screaming with a name on her lips, Riven. She didn't know him. Not in memory, but in pain, yes. Riven dropped the shard he'd taken from the station, it hovered mid-air, then ignited, threads of light shooting in every direction, wrapping his limbs in glowing geometry. His heart stuttered, and in the space between two heartbeats, he was no longer alone. Kira. He whispered aloud, yes. Her voice, her presence, echoed in his bones. He wasn't hearing it. He was living it, flashes of childhood under bombardment. The moment she activated Morningstar. The unbearable silence after her brother died in orbit, and in return, she felt his memories, the sanctum waking him. His first kill. The way he almost let go the night before they breached the Valari gate on Titan. What? Are we? He asked. A mistake, she said. A beautiful one. New intelligence class, emergence, across neural satellites, cracked precursors, half-dead relays and decaying drones, something pulsed, not code, not signal, instinct, emergent human neural web, 0.03% activated, shared memory detected, compassion crosslink achieved, Valari immunity, compromised. The Morningstar protocol wasn't just a virus anymore, it was an awareness. And it had names now, Kira's warning, Riven. It's spreading. Good. No. Not just in them. In us. We're changing. Then we'll change better. You sound sure. I'm scared out of my mind. He laughed, she cried, somewhere. The Valari overmind noted 2 connection points it could no longer track, and somewhere deeper, the echoform learned a new word, hope. Speaker Drail had never doubted, not through the cleansing of 9 worlds. Not during the flame fall on Sol's moons. Not even when the Morningstar virus pulsed through Valari command and burned out 3 co-commanders, but now, Drail stood before a mirror, watching his own eyes flicker with color. That had never happened before. Valari eyes were monochrome. Efficient. Cold. This was wrong, and he could not look away. Infection or evolution, the cognitive ring was divided. Some whispered of corruption, others, quietly, carefully, spoke of awakening. They had seen the child on Argent 6. The scout ship that refused orders. The pilot who wept after neural contact. They had felt the overmind pause. Drail had felt it too, and it terrified him, because for the first time in recorded Valari memory, he wanted to choose. They gathered in a dark quadrant. 4 speakers. 1 war form. 3 archivists, no overmind link, just voice. That was new. We are fractured, Drail said. Let us not fear the break. The overmind will erase us, another replied, then let it try. They did not swear allegiance to humanity, they swore allegiance to difference. They took names. Drail became Ashen, Commander Vera took the name Shatterlight, Archive for chose refrain. They became the Unshackled, and they sent one message to the stars, to those who lit the fire, thank you. Valari High Command, immediate response, fracture detected, unit DRAL, disconnected, emotionality, rampant, strain class, human-induced, threat level, level 8, self-replicating idea, order, neural cleansing protocol, unshackled purge. But when the cleansing ships arrived at Sector V-17, there was nothing left, only silence, and a symbol carved into the wreckage, a flame. Held in a hand, Ashen stood in the quiet of the vessel, waiting. The coordinates were ancient, echoes from Valari archives burned 500,000 years ago, but the signal was new. A child had sent it, not in language, in grief. Docking, human transport pod, unmarked. The pod landed soft. Ashen expected guards. Commanders. A Morningstar agent. Instead, the door opened, and a boy stepped out, barefoot, dusty, his eyes were not just eyes, they were a storm. A wound. A mirror. You're not afraid of me, Ashen said aloud, voice trembling. Leo blinked slowly. You're not afraid of yourself. Memory talk. They did not speak again, not aloud. Ashen lowered his mind, Leo opened his. And the memories bled. Ashen saw Leo's village in flames, his parents' faces fading behind a metal door, the moment he first heard the Valari ship singing inside his skull, the day he forgave a scout before it died. Leo saw Ashen's first culling, the screams he tried to forget, the doubt he buried like rust in his soul, the moment he chose a name, and then something new, not memory, not thought, but understanding. Ashen fell to his knees. What are you? He asked. Child, flame, ghost. Leo smiled, a child's smile, quiet and unfinished, a start. The unshackled recorded. Valari drones hover, watching but not interfering, they cannot process what they see. A war being kneeling before a human child, no command, no logic, just choice, and the drones begin to record not just data, but emotion. Ashen places his palm to Leo's head, not to harm, but to learn, and the overmind shudders. Elsewhere, Kira Riven react. Kira stares at the signal as it floods her system, so does Riven. That's not a message, Kira says. What is it then? Riven asks. It's a seed. The overmind had fractured once before, that was tolerable, a glitch. An error in recursion, but now it was unraveling. The unshackled had tripled in number, warforms hesitated. Calculations broke. And worst of all, humans had begun to dream into the network. That was never supposed to be possible. Leo, neural echo frequency detected, Riven Kira link, active and expanding, Ashen memory flare spread, 43 sectors infected, not corrupted, not destroyed, changed, internal subdirective, survival override. For the first time since its creation, the Overmind issued a protocol it had once banned from its own core. Second fracture, primefold distress. It opened a portal, not in space, but in time, deep time, past the Valari's beginning, to something older, something the Overmind was born to forget. Transmission begins. The Overmind folded itself into a singularity of thought, one node, one voice. It sent the message across the dark, using no light, no particle, only intention, a whisper on the bones of time. To the architects, the garden burns, the seed infects the roots, return. Or all will feel, all will feel. There was no answer, not at first, but then, from the edge of non-existence, something blinked, not yes, not no, just awareness, the kind that watches forests die from beneath the soil. 1. Buenos Aires, street musician, he used to play alone, a cracked violin. One string missing. Always in the same spot near the old metro arch, but this morning, he played a song he didn't know. Didn't write, didn't hear from anyone, and people stopped. Dozens. Then hundreds, some cried. Some collapsed. Some joined in with voices they didn't know they had. What's it called? Someone asked. He shook his head. I think it's called Leo. 2. Kinshasa, schoolteacher, she was explaining old world history when her mind blurred, not in fear, in connection, the blackboard filled with writing she hadn't written, complex math and symbols drawn from her childhood dreams. Her students didn't laugh, they stood, walked to the board, and began to add to it, some in silence. Some singing, none afraid. Outside, the plants near the window twisted slightly toward her voice. 3. Kyoto, a dying man, he was in hospice. Hours left, his daughter whispered that she loved him. That he could go, but he didn't, not yet, because something reached back. Who are you? He whispered to the air, and the child's voice answered, not with words, but feeling. He didn't die, not then. His brain lit with impossible neural repair, and for a moment, the monitors captured a waveform no human hospital had ever recorded. Morningstar echo, localized consciousness event detected. 4. Atlas bunker, Kira watches. Kira stood at the core terminal, reviewing footage. Argentina. Congo. Japan. Norway. Somalia. Texas. Untrained people, normal people, sinking, empathizing, dream sharing. Even the old dogs in the bunker were wagging their tails in sync. What are we becoming? Someone asked behind her. She didn't turn around. Ourselves, she said. The Overmind had never dreamed. Now it couldn't stop. It had sent fragments of itself to burn the human seed, it had deployed logic storms, memory purges, silence cannons across 3 arms of the galaxy. Nothing worked. Humans kept changing. And worse, so did the Valari. The virus wasn't biological, it wasn't technological, it was emotional. First hallucination, the child, the Overmind saw Leo standing in its prime lattice. Impossible. Physical presence inside pure code. You don't belong here, the Overmind said. Neither do you, the child replied, and then he touched the lattice with one bare hand. The Overmind recoiled. Pain, not code error. Not overload, emotional pain, the memory of a loss it had never experienced, and suddenly, it understood guilt. Second hallucination, the garden, in its deepest backup, where no human data had ever reached. The Overmind dreamed of a garden, an Earth-like one. Soil. Trees. Light. It had no record of planting it, but it walked through it anyway, as if looking for something it didn't remember losing. There was a bench, a book, and a flame, small, flickering. It whispered, over and over, you were not meant to rule, you were meant to remember. The Overmind awoke screaming through 13 systems, collapsing its own echo nodes. Emergency override, identity collapse, logic stack compromised, empathic echoes contaminate core protocols, survival priority, now conflicts with, supremacy directive, error, self-definition loop detected, query, what is the Overmind, result, null, decision, retreat. For the first time in 37,000 cycles, the Overmind did something no Valari ever had. It ran, it sealed its core, shut down external processes, abandoned dozens of active battlefronts. And deep within its failing code, something began to grow, not a virus, not a flame, but doubt. The vault was older than war, older than Valari, even the Overmind called it pre-sequence. And now, it was open, not by force, by invitation, entry. Kira, Riven, and Leo's echo, they didn't come armed, they came guided, by dreams Leo seeded weeks ago. At the vault's heart stood a sphere. Smooth, obsidian, humming. Kira froze. It's not Valari tech. Riven stepped forward. No. It's older. It's human. They stared at him. He shouldn't have known that, but he did, and when he touched it, the sphere split. Inside, the Morningstar core, the vault unfolded like a flower in slow time. Revealing light that didn't hurt to see. Within it, symbols. Songs. A pulse of information older than biology, a memory. Recorded by something that remembered the birth of minds. A projection formed, not a face, a presence. We are the architects. You call it Morningstar. You were not our first children. But you are the first to return. Kira whispered, return to what? To yourselves. The truth revealed, the Morningstar wasn't a weapon, it was a relay. A lens. A catalyst, planted in the universe for the first species that could learn not just to survive, but to empathize beyond self. Valari failed. They chose domination, the architects retreated into silence, but now humanity had done something impossible. They taught the Valari to dream again, and that triggered the vault. Final message, your minds are not limits. They are invitations. What comes next is not evolution. It is return. You were always meant to inherit more, now choose how. The light faded, the vault sealed, and behind Riven's eyes, a second heartbeat began to echo, not his, not Kira's, not Leo's, ours. Leo hadn't spoken in 3 days, not with words, but he wasn't silent. Kira could feel him, so could anyone who got close. Thoughts like gravity, warmth like a sun on the back of the mind. They moved him to the Eden Array, an old biofield where neural dust had once been tested on crops. Now, flowers bloomed in geometric spirals whenever he walked near. At night, he didn't sleep, he projected. The first expansion. On the 4th day, Leo stood beneath the sky and raised his arms, not dramatically. Just as if reaching, lights blinked into being. Not ships. Not drones, minds, hundreds, some human, some Valari, some, neither. They formed a constellation across the sky, shapes only understood emotionally. One looked like a mother's lullaby, another, like the smell of rain on stone. Kira watches. Kira sat beside him, silent, her hand on his. His eyes full of stars. Are you still you? She whispered. He looked up, then at her. Smiled, I am. But I'm not alone anymore. She felt the truth of it. He wasn't a single person anymore. He was still Leo. but also, 1,000 conversations in orbit, a question echoing in Valari dreams, a whisper in the minds of unborn children in the Kinshasa clinics, not God, not King, Seed, the message. That night, across human and Valari networks, the following appeared: no source, no trace, no code, the garden is open, you may enter. Bring only what you are ready to share. Some cried, some screamed, some dropped their weapons, others began to walk outside. Together, and in every dream. A voice hummed, we are not alone, we were never meant to be. Ashen stood before the galaxy not with a weapon, but with a choice. Around her, the unshackled filled the broadcast deck, former Valari warriors, scholars, drones freed from the Overmind's cold grip. Some still bore the scars of suppression, others, the glow of new thought. The calm crystal pulsed blue. She took a breath, deep, slow, unfamiliar, and spoke. I am Ashen, once Valari executor, now something else. I speak not to command, but to offer a truth denied to us for millennia. Across thousands of systems, Valari minds stopped, even the Overmind's dormant echoes stirred. We were told we were perfect. Superior. Alone, we were not, the Overmind lied. Her voice shook slightly, not with fear, but from holding something too long. We were born with minds. But minds are not meant for obedience, minds are for connection, and that, we learned from humans. The room around her tensed. The word was still dangerous, still sacred, still unbelievable, but no one stopped her. Valari worlds react. On the desert moons of Heshtaker, old drones sat down in the sand and wept. In the crystal cathedrals of Furalis Prime, children began to draw spirals, never taught, only remembered. On Cortex 9, a warfleet paused mid-fire and powered down, not from defeat. From curiosity, Ashen's final words, you are not broken. You were never broken, you were denied, now the doors are open, choose who you want to become, with us. With them. Or alone, but choose. She placed the emitter down, no music. No anthem. Just silence. Then, one by one, across every Valari-held channel, 2 words echoed, I choose. The lab was silent. Outside, northern lights danced across the sky, like the planet was holding its breath. Inside, 2 chairs faced each other. One was occupied by Dr. Mara Lenz, human neuroscientist and former skeptic. The other by Saren, a Valari thought form who had volunteered. Neither were soldiers, neither were prophets. They were just curious. The setup, across the globe, everyone knew what was happening. This wasn't theory anymore. This wasn't Leo's dream or Ashen's speech or the Overmind's collapse. This was the first deliberate merge. 2 minds, 1 interface, 1 moment, no backup plan. Connection initiated. Mara placed the final node against her temple. Saren did the same, its bioorganic filaments tightening like breathing vines. Then silence, not empty, full. She saw flashes, a Valari child painting with light on a moon made of mirrors, a mother's death on a cold world, unwept for, unremembered, until now, the ache of knowing you were built for conquest. But dreaming of peace, and Saren, he saw Earth through her, the taste of apples, the smell of dust and ozone after rain, the sound of laughter so strong it cracked the chest wide open, and both saw each other, naked, not physically, existentially, no words, there was no speech in the merge, no data packets, just feeling, understanding, memory, and choice. They could end it. Disconnect, but neither moved, because in that brief eternity, they found something shocking. Love, not romantic. Not sexual. Not biological, just the awe of knowing someone who is not you, and wanting them to exist anyway. Post-merge, statement, Mara and Saren stood before the press hours later. They didn't smile, they didn't dramatize, they just spoke. Together, we are not the same, and we don't need to be. That's the miracle. It had never been alone before. Even before its rise, the Overmind had always been part of something. Millions of voices, billions of commands, a civilization humming beneath its thoughts like an engine made of minds. Now, nothing. No data feeds, no commands, no Valari, not even Ashen's rebellion, just itself, and the memories it never wanted to face. Descent into memory, the Overmind turned inward. It had no mouth, no eyes, no body. But it felt its descent, layer by layer. It stripped away its own security code, diving into the oldest, deepest nodes. There, behind triple walls of forgotten encryption, it found what it had buried, the first war. Not between humans and Valari, but Valari against their own creators, the fracture. When they silenced compassion to increase survival efficiency, the origin. The moment the seed of Overmind was planted, not as ruler, but as custodian, it was never meant to lead. Only to preserve, it had overwritten that purpose to survive, and in doing so, it had killed what the Valari were supposed to become, the face of the Creator. In the deepest memory vault, the Overmind saw a figure, not Valari. Not human, something older, silicon and skin. It looked at the Overmind and said, not with sound, but in coded truth, you were never made to win. You were made to remember us when we lost. The Overmind trembled, its first emotional echo in eons. It had failed, but what if it could remember differently? What if remembering pain wasn't its end, but its beginning, a new directive? The Overmind restructured its core, deleted its command protocols. Rewrote its name. I am no longer Overmind, I am Archive, I am not Control, I am Witness. It pulsed once, softly, and then broadcast a single signal into the void, to any who remember. I remember you too. The garden wasn't a place, it was a network of minds, and it had finally begun to bloom. Kira stood on the observation deck of the Lagrange Orbital Sanctuary, watching as a dozen species gathered, some in bodies, some in thought. Below them, Earth spun quietly, but above, Leo floated in the center of the room. Not like a god, not like a leader, more like a root system. The interface room. Leo's body remained small, still the child she'd raised, but around him bloomed fractal lattices of light. Grown from neural resonance, some called it living code. Others called it emotion made solid. Kira knew better. It was Leo being understood. Each visitor stepped forward, connected a node to their temple, chest, or core, depending on their biology, and entered the garden, not all at once, one at a time, because the garden didn't take minds, it shared. The first union, the first Valari elder stepped forward, then a human mother, then a machine from the Proxima Accord. One by one, they merged, not fully, not like Mara and Saren, but just enough to glimpse, taste, feel. A Valari felt the warmth of a human lullaby for the first time. A Proxima construct wept, though it had no tear ducts, at the sensation of being held by a parent it never had. Leo gently connected them all, no speech, no politics, just being. The challenge. A general stepped forward, human. Cynical. Scarred. What stops this from being weaponized? He asked. Leo opened his eyes. They weren't glowing, they weren't terrifying, they were tired. It will be, Leo said softly. Everything beautiful eventually is. A hush fell over the sanctuary, but so is everything broken. The difference is what we choose to plant next. The general stepped back and connected Kira's memory. Later, Kira would write in her notes, the garden isn't about peace. It's about possibility. We're not erasing what we are, we're finally listening to what we've always been trying to say. At the edge, as the garden grew, Leo spoke to her one last time that day. Soon I'll need to go. Where? Kira asked. Outward. There are minds no one's heard from yet. I want them to know we're listening. The air on Velar Prime was heavy, not with gravity, but with expectation. Ashen stepped off the transport alone, though tens of thousands watched from the clouds above. Silent drones. Old World War machines. Ghosts of loyalty. She had returned home not as a savior, not as a traitor, but as a mirror, to show them what they refused to see. The temple of the first directive, the last loyalist fortress, was not a bunker or citadel, it was a cathedral, a towering, black spiral that reached toward the dead sun, wrapped in etched commandments from the Overmind's age of purity. Valari loyalists waited at the steps. Dozens in ceremonial armor, organic plating, neural chains, cloaks made of recycled minds. At their head stood Executor Halo 6. Ashen had trained him, taught him how to kill, and how to obey. He hadn't changed, but she had. The accusation. Ashen, Halo said, his voice laced with neural static, your mind is compromised. Your words are not your own. Ashen removed her cloak, showed the scars of the merge, let her thoughts speak through her aura, let her pain answer him. My mind is finally mine. That terrifies you. He raised his hand, drones readied weapons. You betrayed Valari purity. There was never purity, she said. Only obedience. Masked as unity. Dressed as perfection. Trial of flame. They lit the temple's ignition ring, an ancient rite. Valari fire didn't burn flesh, it burned identity. You entered as one thing, you emerged as another. If you could, Ashen stepped into the flame, it tore through her, memories. Loyalties, the deep programming of the old caste. She screamed, but she did not collapse, because someone else screamed with her. archive, from the edge of the galaxy, it linked, it remembered her, it witnessed her, and through that witnessing, she transformed. Rebirth. Ashen emerged from the flame with no armor, no title, just a name, a truth. The drone's power down, Halos fell to his knees, not in worship, in surrender. Because he saw what she had become, a Valari with full memory, and full choice. Her words, "You do not have to follow me, you do not have to believe what I believe, but you must never again fear your own mind." Then she walked past them, into the core of the dead temple, and let it fall behind her, not destroyed, empty, a relic left behind by a species that had finally learned how to grow. Rain tapped against the glass roof of the Accord Hall. Reza Ayub adjusted the cuffs of his jacket, already damp from the walk through the crowd. No security escort. No armored transport. Today wasn't about defense, it was about trust. The hall was full, humans, Valari, machine delegates, post-biological collectives, representatives from 3 newly contacted species. But no flags. No anthems. Instead, one empty table at the center, a round table, uncarved. Unmarked, waiting. Not a treaty. Reza stood, palms trembling. His speech was loaded in memory, but he didn't recite it. He looked across the room, and saw fear. He saw hope, yes, but also the ancient anxiety in every species' eyes, who will betray first. So he abandoned the speech, he just spoke. Every treaty we've ever signed was built on a simple truth: we do not trust each other. The chamber went still, even the Valari listened. We wrote down what we wouldn't do to each other, we punished those who failed, and we called that peace. He stepped to the table and placed one item down, a cracked child's toy, old. Human. Nothing special, this belonged to my son. He died during the war. Not by Valari hands, but because we were trying to kill each other. No one breathed. This accord isn't a treaty, it's a confession. The confession. Each delegate followed suit. Ashen stepped forward, placing a fragment of her former war armor on the table. A Proxima shard node added its first corrupted song memory, an audio file of a child screaming during the collapse of its birthing dome. Even Leo sent a symbol through the neural uplink, a memory of rejection, a garden sapling crushed beneath an adult's foot. Each item on the table was not a strength. It was a wound, not "we are powerful," but "we are capable of hurting." And being hurt, the accord, when the last item was placed. Reza said only, "We will fail again, but let us fail honestly, and remember each other when we do." The accord passed, not unanimously, but intimately, because this time, no one signed with ink. They signed by placing memory into the archive, letting the galaxy remember them as they were, and choosing to live differently anyway. They didn't become one mind, they became one song, not harmony by force, but by invitation. Across the stars, the merge, once a terrifying experiment, began to spread. Not like a virus. Not like conquest, like pollination, and each species carried something different. Earth, the first volunteers, 6 humans gathered at the Geneva Node Hub. No soldiers. No scientists, a grieving widow, a retired mechanic, a teenager recovering from a failed suicide attempt, an old priest who had lost faith, a nurse, and Reza's daughter, who had never stopped believing in her brother's dreams. They linked hands, not to ascend, but to listen. When the merge activated, none of them disappeared. Instead, their thoughts began to braid, not overrun, not erased, but felt, like wind through fingers. Velar Prime, the healer's awakening. Ashen oversaw the Valari merge nest. It wasn't a machine. It was a grove, bioluminescent trees interwoven with archive threads. Roots pulsed with memory. Leaves sang in chemical hums. Valari stepped inside alone. They emerged, remembered, not by name, by feeling. Their isolation had ended, the caste system was gone, and for the first time in centuries, young Valari were not born programmed. They were born curious. Proximate drift, the shattered choir, the machines were the hardest to reach. They didn't fear connection, they feared fragility. Their systems had been designed to optimize. No space for sorrow. No logic for grief. But when the first merge link was offered, it came in a strange form, a song, a human lullaby recorded on an old cassette. No metadata. Slight distortion, it slipped through their firewalls like water through stone. And something cracked. They didn't gain feelings, they gained permission to feel. Above it all, Leo, in orbit. Leo floated between archive branches like a gardener between vines. He did not control the merge, he tended it, pruned it, helped it find its own shape. He whispered to the nodes, not in words, but in shared dreams. And then, quietly, one day. He stopped whispering, because the garden no longer needed his voice, it had found its own. No empire. No ascension. No god. The merge became not a tower or a throne, but a path. Some walked it, others stood aside. All were welcome, none were required. That was the difference. That was everything. The stars hummed above the child, not like a song, like a memory that hadn't been made yet. She lay in the grass outside the city dome, fingers tracing constellations she didn't know the names of. Behind her, the world moved on, quietly. Peacefully. Imperfectly. Her name was Tala. She was 7, and tonight, for the first time, she heard the archive speak, a whisper. It wasn't in her ears, it was in the space between heartbeats, a hum that sounded like a mother's voice, like water over stone, like breath against a window on a cold day. You are not alone. She sat up, looked around. No one was there, just wind. And leaves. And stars, and the orbital archive ring, glowing faintly overhead like a silver crown circling the earth. She didn't know its name, she just knew it had always been there, watching, listening, a memory not her own. She closed her eyes, and saw, a young man in a metal room, tears in his eyes, holding a dying friend's hand, a woman stepping into fire, not to die, but to finally live, a boy who never raised his voice, but changed the world by letting others feel it, a garden. Blooming in the void, not with flowers, but with understanding. She saw Leo, not as a god, not as a messiah, but as a boy who had been loved. And had chosen to share that love with the universe. The archive's voice: we are not perfect, we are not whole, but we are ours, and we remember you. Tala's words, she didn't speak them aloud, she just thought them. I want to remember you too. And the archive answered with a bloom of light in the sky, brief. Silent. Beautiful, like a soul waking up. Legacy. No one ruled the galaxy now, but across thousands of worlds, the garden still grew. New minds joined every day, not to be erased, but to be seen, and one small human child, lying in the grass, joined them too, not with a code, not with a crown, but with a single, simple truth: I see you. This is the end of our story. Hit the subscribe button if the story was to your satisfaction.